Greetings and salutations, everyone. Handgun, terminal, ballistics, nerd, arms, security guy, Dan the Wolfman here. Someone asked me a little while ago, and I didn't respond because it's not easy to. I just did 4 hours of research to re-verify everything I thought I knew and hypothesize. Why 357 mag and 357 SIG worked, and why I duty carry plus P plus and law enforcement should be doing it too. Someone's asked, like, okay, you talked about tissue crush, about total wound volume so much. Because obviously, people, the bigger the bullet, the more tissue is destroyed, the faster the blood loss. And outside of a upper CNS, central nervous system shot, that's what handguns do, is leaker. And you want them to leak quicker, especially in my opinion, because bad guys are standing upright when they're trying to stab you and shoot you typically. And, gravity will seal tiny itty bitty wounds like 22. Well, you guys on Gun Sam's video. So anyway, guys, please always like and comment. Some of you are liking, and I appreciate it greatly. But please comment on my channel, or I'm not going to do this much longer. Okay, please comment. It's really not worth it. I lose money like crazy. Comment on every video, even if it's just thanks or interesting or something. But this is a really interesting question, because it's like, well, why does this seemingly in the real world, anecdotally, why was it so much more effective than similar diameter, 380, 9x18, a little bit bigger, 9mm, etc.? Why was 357 mag and then 357 SIG so effective? And that leads us into why was plus P plus kind of effective, and why with the right newer projectile design, they may want to attempt that to see if they get faster stops or requiring less hits on bad guys. Okay. Just got this in. So brand new thing from Taurus. If you mess with the bull, you get the horns. I'll see how that fits into my already laid out schedule. I don't know yet, and I'm waiting on holsters from Tactical. So, and I have some new holsters to review from Rounded as well. Okay, so 357 Magnum was the lightning bolt effect. I have a theory that I've called the FIBS effect. FIBS, active self-protection. I've been shot. Because a lot of times you see guys shot with 9mm until the 4th or 5th hit. They don't even realize they've been shot, right? Depending on where it was. That's not a good thing, especially for, everybody. Gonna explain EKE, what that is. E15. Expected kinetic energy from 1 to 15 centimeters or 5.9 inches. This was done by the Army. This is controversial. Done by the Army, BRL. Needs and Prath, and then later by a PhD couple, Courtney and Courtney, who people downplay because they're a little spiritual and maybe they see cool things in the sky like DOD is looking at officially from all of my videos I've shared, unless they kill me. Courtney and Courtney talked about peak pressure wave and peak retarding force. Again, 357, this is not an easy one to answer, guys, because it's kind of not looked at or not acknowledged by the Fackler side, the Dr. Roberts side of thing, or the FBI side of things. Okay. Psychological. 357 back in the day, a lot of people like Daryl Bolke and other people like that talked about the flashbang effect. So if it was close range at nighttime, you got boom, a flashbang. Psychological additional stopping power due to psychological effect from the flashbang. It's also very loud. A loud bang, and at close range, you're going to get a pressure hit, like a literal, poof on the body. Okay, I use targets online. You should too, Dan the Wolfman, that are thicker. Even the paper ones are thicker than the cheap paper ones that ranges sell. If you try a 357 mag within 3 yards on cheap paper, it's going to blow it apart. Okay, so psychological stuff. It's kind of a combination of all these things. Why 357 mag and then NBPLE or 115 plus P plus and then 357 SIG got the lightning bolt, or what I call the FIBS effect. Because it would be nice for bad guys to know they've been shot to stop trying to hurt you. Okay? To get scared and go, oh, if I've been shot, the FIBS effect. Part physical from some of this stuff, hypothetically, from me, and part, and all that I just talked about, as well as all the psychological increases from the louder bang, from maybe a flashbang effect at nighttime, from a hit, from the high pressure cartridges at close range. Okay, Masayob just talked about 357 SIG, but of course he talked about Magnum and why Indianapolis. And we're talking about the 125 grain semi-jacketed hollow point that Remington first came out with in 1974, and then Federal and Winchester in 1977. The Federal is the best in my opinion, followed by the Remington, followed way behind by the Winchester that has problems dealing with multiple layers of clothing and still expanding. And I have real data from everybody. I do, trust me. Okay. And I've ballistics tested the Federal from a 3-inch 57 Magnum and got the same exact results using Dick Fairbairn's water jug method that the FBI did from real data that I have. Okay. Pretty important stuff. So that was really got a lightning bolt effect, 1,400 to 1,400 feet per second from 4-inch revolvers. I sent them my last of the 357B, the real old school stuff, a couple years ago. Gun Sam got 1,443 in his 686. GP100s are always faster. So it is what it is. Just so you know. Fight me down below. Indianapolis went to 357 mag. Moss said they got 10 one-shot stops, 3 of which were peripheral armor leg hits. And the guy's like either down or literally unconscious. So it has a huge psychological effect, but maybe like a physiological effect that adds to the psychological effect from the bang and everything. But also like the extra tissue tearing at close range or even the first few inches of the wound that deer hunters will tell you comparing 357 mag to 9mm or 357 from a lever gun to 357 from a revolver length barrel, etc. Please see my ballistics playlist. I made you guys all a ballistics playlist. Check out Paul Harrell doing like 357 mag versus 357 SIG. Arizona Air Gunner does organic gel and sees how big the wounds are in the splits and measures everything. Does a really good job, Arizona Air Gunner. Also, Discreet Defense makes homemade organic gel. Organic gel is better than clear ballistics. Buckeye Ballistics, especially when he uses clothing. Buckeye, please always do clothing. Back in the day, TN Outdoors 9 and Scuba Oz, if you really want to kind of start figuring this all stuff out. With clear ballistics, the insertion of MDF that Gun Sam came up with, and then Trigger Bar did on my suggestion, Trigger Bar Philosopher, that makes the clear ballistics or CB candle wax product, synthetic product that doesn't have water to compress and is 17 to 25% less dense than organic gel. It makes that better that at least for a layman civilian, you can go, looks good enough. What does good enough mean? Whether you want to go with FBI's 12 to 18, if it gets at least 10.5 inches in organic gel, heavy clothing, or 10.5 inches in Gun Sam or Trigger Bar, it's probably good enough for civilian use unless you are always in and around vehicles, which a lot of my defensive gun use displays have been in and around vehicles. So it's something to consider why you might want a better bonded style or HST style bullet. Okay, Federal 9BPLE, 115 plus B plus, 1,300 all the way up to 1,350 feet per second, depending on lots. Gun Sam got 1,344 from his 5-inch M&P. Paul Harrell, off memory, 1,318 from his slower Beretta M9, 4.9-inch barrel, or 92. In 1982, Illinois State Police, then New Jersey, then Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, then Border Patrol, and DeKalb County was probably the last large-ish department to use 9BPLE. H.R. Funk was issued it back in the day, or he issued it since he was probably the chief, or maybe before he was the chief. You know, it does really well other than car barriers. It does really well if it doesn't have to go through, I don't know, the guy's hiding behind a big telephone pole or something. Okay, so it's not good with barrier penetration because it's old cup and cord lead technology. I'm going to get into like real data, why I think some of this matters and why, okay? But I got to go through this autism rant, which is probably, hopefully going to be the best explaining why. Yeah, you know what? It really does work. We're not exactly sure why, but I'm giving you the best hints of probably why and some hypothesis and stuff backed by, you know, Army and PhDs, okay? 82, 9BPLE. Then, by the way, Secret Service went to Winchester, that 115 plus P plus in 1987. So Miami-Dade, FBI says 12 to 18. Secret Service says, F you, we're going to do our own study, and we want bad guys to drop quicker because they're trying to assassinate our protectee known as POTUS and others, right? Or, you know, doing counterfeiting bank stuff. So that's even more of an underpenetrator than 9BPLE. 9BPLE is very variable. It's a good round if it doesn't have to go through a barrier first. So good that I might decide to load all my 3.5 to 4 inch barrel pistols with the first 5 rounds of 9BPLE. Okay, before going on HSTs or punch, right? But it's really variable depending on clothing and a lot of factors. It's not going to be great going through shoulder bone or even an 18.5 inch bicep like mine before trying to get deep enough in the upper thoracic cavity, 7.9 inches on average to the human heart. Okay. 357 SIG. Texas DPS wanted it, then SIG and Federal made it, and 357 SIG is neck down 10 millimeter. It is not neck down 40. It's neck down 10 millimeter to 9 millimeter projectiles, basically. Well, better design projectiles, but size, 355, whatever. So Secret Service did the Plus P Plus in 1987. And then SIG in 1994 happened. And then Texas Rangers, Secret Service, Air Marshals adopted 357 SIG and 229s in 2002. Delaware State Police, Virginia State Police, North Carolina, Rhode Island. I forgot that existed. We're just going to trade that with Alberta or finally Puerto Rico. That would be nice to those Puerto Ricans. Secret Service, 125 grain gold dot P229 at 1350 feet per second in 1998. So 98, 357 SIG with Secret Service, 2002 with Air Marshals. There was 2 different SKUs. There's rumor 5 pedal over 6 pedal. Everything data on the internet's weird, and even Spear had the pictures wrong, and I corrected them a long time ago, actually, on their Vista LE data website. But there's a couple different SKUs, and some say they're different projectiles, some say they're the same, and one's just Air Marshals at higher velocity to maybe penetrate a little bit less, to expand a little bit quicker, to shorten the neck, to upset, as the technical term, to expansion. Okay, so let's talk more about EKE. What is EKE? EKE, or E15, is the expected kinetic energy between 1 centimeter and 15 centimeter. 15 centimeter is 5.9 inches. So 1 centimeter, when the hollow point's about to, expand, create upset, how much expected energy is between 1 centimeter and 15 centimeter. So when people go, oh, guys that say energy dump are dumb, well, they kind of are because they don't really know this stuff. But they're kind of not, because they also know, it's a thing. If I shoot you with a 357 Magnum lever gun, it's going to have more effect, terminal effect, than from a 9mm micro pistol. It's kind of common sense. Okay, and deer hunters, again, will tell you this. Brass Fetcher wrote about it. Deer velocity under 1200, that sucks. Deer velocity 357, 1200, or 1300 to 1600, you get a little more effect. Now, you start cooking 1600 up. If I get something at 2000 feet per second, having more effect on that deer to just drop right there instead of running 50 yards off, okay, given similar hip placement. Okay, so now we're going to compare from an actual subject matter expert, Schwartz. Schwartz is a subject matter expert on using water and 6 different mathematical formulas, 2 of which he invented, I believe, mThor, to figure out using water penetration to correlate to organic gel. That's kind of what Fairbane is. Schwartz is saying Fairbane you need at least 400 of those tests, but I've done my own 357 test, correlated perfectly. I've seen other people do water jug tests, and there is always going to be a variation with 4 different types of plastic using water jugs. But if you source gallon water jugs, not all these weird sizes, gallon water jugs from the same source, you're going to get probably plus or minus 4 to 7%. And that's good enough for regular people. Look at my ballistics playlist. You're going to find all kinds of stuff, including the modern meat target, and started with using Gun Sam's old baloney testing method. Okay, so Schwartz, predictive modeling in water. I want to show you the EKE numbers and how different they are from caliber to caliber, and why, again, 357 Mag and SIG probably had very good effect. Physiological effect that contributes to the psychological effect, because I call it Fibs effect. We do have a lot of nerves, so it's the combination of everything plus the EKE, meaning the kind of energy dump, okay, and we have a lot of nerves. So I think you're more likely to realize you've been shot. Now, bigger is always going to work. Bigger is always going to work and cause faster blood loss and more likely to hit a vital structure. But the question is, then why does 357 mag and SIG work so good? And what about plus P plus 9mm? Plus P plus 9mm with old cup and core, remember, it's going to under-penetrate in a lot of situations, especially if you're dealing with auto bodies and stuff. DeKalb County, last time before they switched to 147 G2, for better car vehicle penetration, they dropped 16 bodies that year. Now, they tended to shoot people a lot, and, you know, if you shot at a cop, you did something bad, they hunted you through the woods, and they shot you a whole lot, which I have no problem with. Okay, so, PDX 147 grain Winchester. Using Q method, M4, 13.3 to 13.7 inches of predicted penetration in water. Wound volume is 2.8 to 2.94, okay? Screenshot. So, how about Winchester white box, now Winchester black box, which is funny. How much penetration is expected? Using his method, I think I have Organic Jolt that says like 11.7, but he's predicting 12.8 to 13.1, 2.57 total wound volume. So less than the 147, but 2.57 total wound volume or tissue crush, okay? I've talked about these and other things. You should start to realize the difference between calibers. What about Winchester 230 grain USA? Predicted 11.2 to 11.5 inches of penetration, 3.91 to 3.99 cubic inches of tissue crush. So tissue crush matters, but we're really interested today talking about the EKE or E15. So E15 on this guy was 220. EKE on the 115 grain, 244. That's another reason I never liked 147. It seemed like bad guys didn't know they got shot even less with 147. Okay? Didn't have the stopping power. Okay? Technically a bigger bullet, technically a wider total wound volume, but you want the bad guy to stop trying to kill you. You want him to like redirect and move away kind of thing. Winchester 230 grain white box stuff, or now black box or whatever they're calling it, 3.9 to 399. E15 moves up to 266. Okay, we're seeing an increase there. Doesn't really come into play in a little bit once you get over 300, and way better at like 450, 500, might it matter. So Winchester Ranger 230 plus P, the plus P maybe does matter, from XD 5-inch, okay, 2-layer denim, 66 expansion, Q model 15.5 basically, 4.4 cubic inches. So 4.4 is a lot bigger than 2.5. 4.4 from cheap, not cheap, from the Winchester Ranger plus P, a good bullet, 4.5, compared to cheap Winchester white box 115, 2.5. That's a big difference. That's enough difference to potentially make a difference in your defensive gun use or officer-involved shooting, OIS. EKE on this one is 312 FPE. 312 versus 250. That's a big difference. Okay, for Guns Am, 327 Federal Magnum, and this comes from a actual subject matter expert. 115 grain gold dot, Taurus 2.5 inch, so it was a 2.5 inch barrel, 2-layer denim at 1,381 feet per second. So Guns Am, you can look at what you're getting in your LCR and your long one too. 0.547 expansion. I also have data from Federal, actually, which I've given in a video before. M-Thor and Q model, 14.6 predicted penetration in water, 2.81 cubic inches. So 2.8 is between the two cheaper 9mm here. However, E15, expected kinetic energy or energy dump, but guys that just do this stuff kind of figure out on their own. That's why I like Guns Am. Like, he's kind of figured out a lot of technical things by experimentation. 3.32 FPE. Compare that to the 2.220, 332 versus 220 or 244 with the 9mm. So 327, I'm getting a higher expansion ratio to just as big a bullet, 5.47 typically, right? And but there is this other factor. Okay, debatable, controversial, but I'm giving it to you guys. It's going to be louder at close range. They're going to get a blast. Probably not as much as 357 Magnum, but it's still a Magnum. And maybe this matters to the nerve sensation, or what Courtney and Courtney call peak pressure wave or peak retarding force. Okay, again, PhD couple that did stuff at Cornell University. Okay. Now, I asked Gun Sam something the other day. I just lost my train of thought. Okay, next up. Using organic gel data, I found where this guy Schwartz had given data on Vista LE's 4-layer organic gel. 124 plus peak gold dot, 295 FPE. We're talking FPE for the EK or E15. 124 plus P HST is higher at 320. That's why I've always said I like HSTs better. One of the many reasons for civilian use, but for duty use, maybe in and out of vehicles, I tend to like the gold dot. And if it's plus P plus from a long polygonal barrel, I can handle the recoil because it's a P30L, and this is going to do great things. Probably 1330 to maybe 1370 feet per second from a particular loader. That's almost 357 mag. That's almost 357 sig without having to spend the money. Okay, and I think LE would be smart to not go to like pistols at shorter barrel lengths that can't handle the recoil. We're not getting great stops with 9mm. Maybe if we juice it up a little bit with a proper bullet, not bullet that's going to just fragment and underpenetrate. With a gold dot, you can see them tested at these high velocities and doing very good things. So a little more stretch, a little more in the first few inches of the wound, a little more EKE, a little more loud, oh shit, and things like that are good. And it would probably lead to getting better if you're not going to switch back to 40 like you should for vehicle usage. Okay, 357 SIG, 125 grain, the 5391A at 1350 feet per second, 325 FPE. 45 gold dot, 185 grain, 335. So the 230, I like 230 HST, but maybe a 185 carry or a short barrel, maybe a 185 gold dot, or especially if you can find a plus P, or Gun Sam has been doing the 200 plus P, which I think had problems in the past, but I think it's sorted out now, or maybe the 185 Golden Saber. There might have more EKE than a 230 HST, but the expanded diameter is not going to be as big, so it's not going to have as much total wound volume. Which is better in the real world? It might depend on if the guy's drunk, high, or not to dull his nerves, you know, or if he's in a complete rage maniac ready to die versus like you're a common criminal trying to rob you. Okay. So everyone wants to look at physiological and psychological different, and I don't. I kind of see how they overlay a little bit. Okay. 357 SIG, 125 grain HST at 1360 feet per second. Schwartz said it would have 415.5, 415 versus 295 to 320 from the plus P9 millimeters from 4-inch barrels. The SIG's at 415. I'm not sure if that was a 4 or 5-inch barrel. G31, 4.5-inch barrel. Arizona Air Gun has gotten as high as 1450 to 1498. He's in Arizona heat though. Buckeye Ballistics, another guy you need to check out, organic gel. If he uses clothing, Buckeye 1360, right on par. Like he was approximately right at 1360 at box rating. Paul Harrell has done a video that had a bunch of different rounds in it, going as low as 1379 with the Remington, up to 1,527 feet per second with the Underwood. Now, Underwood used to have bonded, which was gold dots. Unfortunately, now they get to use Nalser. If you overdrive a Nalser, it's going to if you overdrive it way too much, it's going to fragment way too much and tend to underpenetrate. So you don't want 115 Nalser. You might want a 124 plus P Nalser. Even Gun Sam just tested one that I sent him in a big ballistics test with a bunch of stuff. I tested them, but maybe not the best quality control on that US cartridge. Maybe better, you know, from Underwood, at least back in the day, before skimping on powder and stuff like that. One, it was really hot, but you can only push kind of old technology projectiles so fast. But something like a gold dot, to an extent, HST will hold together really, really well. Even punch through stuff Gun Sam's done in barrier testing, and even like 380 the other day, through steel, like it holds pretty good. But you gold dot punch, maybe a PDX1 bonded. I don't like stuff Remington and Winchester's done bonded because you don't get near as much expansion as the unbonded. But if you're talking at overdriven plus P plus velocities, That's why plus P plus might be good. I am not telling you to load plus P plus core bond that may be great or may underpenetrate, maybe has QC issues. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying 9B is the best in the world, because if it has to go through vehicles, it may be bad. If you want to load your first 5 rounds in your pistol with it, especially in that 3.5 to 4 inch kind of more known territory instead of 5 inch, overdriven, maybe even more under penetration, depending on if it flakes off or not. It's very variable. But you might want to do that because it's cheap to buy 1,000 and function test your pistols and all that. Anyway, that's why that my theory on Fibs effect, that it kind of involves the controversial EKE or expected kinetic energy, or E15, or if you hear 5.9 inches or 15 centimeters, that's what they're talking about. Okay. And that is an actual measurable thing. Secret Service measured it. That's why they picked the 115 plus P plus, and then they switched to 357 SIG. And don't tell me I shoot someone once or twice with 357 SIG, it's not going to have more effect than 9mm. Don't tell me if I shoot on the other side of tissue crush and bigger wound volume. Don't tell me if I shoot someone 2, maybe 3 times that we used to see with a 40 or proper 45 from a long enough barrel and not in heavy winter clothing, so it's still got full uniform expansion. We saw 2 to 3, boom, they're down if it's in a decent hit location, obviously, okay? But you see 6, 8, 9 shot 12 times. Or as Roy Harrell just talked about, the video of the guy with the stick, and I think it was round 12 the guy went down and he dropped so fast finally then. Like, he didn't feel it until like number 5 or 6. He kind of did that, but he like didn't feel those first ones, you could tell. Like his nerve sensation didn't tell him he was getting shot. Like it didn't register. And then I think, I haven't watched it in a while, maybe I'm wrong, but 10 or 12, it looked like that probably hit his spine, because then he finally just dropped. CNS is the way to do it. So there is the very long, convoluted answer of why velocity may still matter as well. Courtney and Courtney shot deer with a projectiles at different velocity. Now, some of that was muzzle loader, so do they really know the velocity? They put bigger charges in. It is variable. But if you shoot deer at different velocity, a lot of deer hunters will tell you this. Paul Harrell told you that back in the day. A brass fetcher who, I don't know where he is now, he used to do SIG handgun ammo, ballistics. Brass fetcher's done a whole lot of good stuff. He's got some interesting stuff on copper rounds. I was asked about recently by someone who works with the aerospace companies. I don't know if that was a "we're watching you" threat or if it was random. With one of the bigger ones that now has the 3-letter acronym when you're trading stock. However, I mean, he asked me about it, and Fletcher said maybe these copper rounds, those might be good at the first 5 rounds too. The copper rounds may expand better. Like, if you hit a breastbone, you're not going through the meat to start the upset fast enough. You're just hitting the breastbone. So some hollow points sometimes do great if they hit bone right away. And he seems to think the copper rounds, through his testing, do better, which I've been asked about. Now they don't get as high velocity because they're lighter and they take up more case length. That was way too long, but I do want to say, like, it does correlate to deer, and also what Fetcher said at the different feet per second deer, and what Paul Harrell said, and other hunters will tell you that wound looks a little more black, damaged tissue around the wound. It's a little more separated, especially in those first 3, maybe to 5.9 inches. It's a combinations of things. So why did it work so good? Sometimes a combinations of things. On the other side, Dr. Roberts, let me finish with this, says, California Highway Patrol gets a lot of shootings. They were using 357 Magnum for 4-inch barrels. They said they got better stops when they switched to 40. Why? Because maybe their 357 Magnum stops when shooting in a vehicles or at distance, 20 yards, 15 yards on a highway, isn't as effective as the added psychological flashbang effect and the whomp hit and the loud noise as much as when, you're in a hallway and a dude shoots a 357 Magnum. Also, a 2-inch 357 Magnum is not a 3 or 4-inch ballistically at all, and most of you can't handle the recoil. Look at my downfalls of recoil, downfalls of Magnum ammo, multiple videos. There's another one coming, doing my test. The downfalls of Magnum ammo, you're going to want to look at that. Is it a 20 ounce and under? Forget about it. Is it a 30 ounce and under? Mid-power Magnums only. don't do full power unless it's over 30 ounces, and even most of you probably can't handle it, and even it's questionable. So there is a downside of recoil, but that's another topic for another time, and I'll catch you mother lovers on the flip side. Please comment down below. If any of you actually watched the whole thing, please comment and let me know if you learned anything, if what you think about this stuff. Always comment, always like. Be a good person. Catch you on the flip side.